It takes a whole lot of people to keep a Broadway show running, from the stars on stage to the orchestra in the pit and all the people behind the scenes whose names you don't always see in the playbill. Our man Perry is on the town.
That's right, Tamsin. The new musical, Water for Elephants, brings real circus performers to the Broadway stage. I'm headed to the stage door to catch up with co-choreographer and circus designer Shana Carroll. So we are right outside the theater, right before warm-up, so we got to get going. But we are here with Shana Carroll, the circus designer and co-choreographer of the show. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So what exactly does that entail, being the circus designer of a show and the co-choreographer?
Yes. Well, the circus design part more has to do with deciding on what circus language I'm going to use to tell the story, what circus element, what circus discipline, how we can build actual circus disciplines to highlight the moments in the show. And the choreography is more, the movement and the crafting of the numbers themselves.
I know you have actual authentic circus performers and acrobats, but you're also casting people who need to be on the stage for a different medium.
Right.
What is the difficulty in casting a role where there is circus involved?
Well, in the case of the acrobats, I tried to make sure that the acrobats I hired, I knew they also had other skills, that they were talented dancers and actors and were good characters on the stage as well. So that was one of my considerations. I mean, circus performers are not usually trained in acting and dance, and yet often have natural abilities.
Sure.
And so I tried to get those people with natural abilities. And then on the flip side, when we cast the dancers and the actors, we tried to get people who were agile and had the potential to learn some circus.
I got to go back a little bit. How does one get into circus design? What is your background?
Growing up, I was a theater kid, actually, so this is all full circle in a way. But then when I was 18, I essentially jumped a circus trade like our main character did. So I started circus when I was 18, was a trapeze artist for 20 years at Cirque du Soleil and all of that, and then started my own company called Seven Fingers. It's on my hat here. And so I've been directing and creating circus shows for 20 years now. I was always really, really passionate about the hybrid of circus and theater, and that was actually one of my sort of goals as a creator, was figuring out how we can find that fusion of circus and theater. So this is sort of culminated in many ways in Water for Elephants, and figuring out how I can use circus as a storytelling device.
What was the biggest difficulty in adapting circus for the stage?
I've done many shows where I use circus as, on the stage and in a storytelling environment, but it's really circus is the main language, so every piece involves circus. I knew for this particular show, it is a musical, and there are words and songs and all sorts of other things, and so I felt like I had to use a lot of restraint to make sure that I didn't kind of bulldoze with the circus, because circus can get people's brains in a whole other place if they're watching someone, hang by one foot and suddenly they're in a different state than really caring about, or the plight of our main character. So I felt like I had to use a lot of restraint to make sure that it didn't overwhelm the story.
Sure. And
only supported it. And I feel like that was really interesting for me, because I kept wanting to, we could do this here, we could do that there. And what I would normally do, even in like I said, in a storytelling way, and yet it had to be the right amount of storytelling for this particular show.
Shana, I certainly could use a warm-up.
Yes.
It's chilly out here, and I know warm-ups are right in. Should we head in?
Let's head in. Perfect.
Perfect.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Okay, great.
So here we are. The warm-up is going on right behind us.
Yeah.
We got tightrope walkers. We got knife throwers.
Yeah.
Do you guys run through every trick every day?
We would not be able to run through every trick. In fact, if we ran through every trick, we'd probably need about 3 hours of warm-up, which
Longer
we
than
can't
the show.
do. Longer than the show.
Wow.
So we pick and choose. There's some that are more essential to warm-up than others. There's some where if something was funky in the show that day, we say, okay, let's look at this because the timing was off, or we alternate if we do tight wire one day or the pole the next day. So that's part of the job, is figuring out how to prioritize and what to give love to and who to give love to, in the sense some people need a little more time to warm up one day compared to another.
Maybe you're just the nicest person in the world, but everyone coming on stage seems like they've known you forever. What is the importance of that camaraderie and knowing these people when you have something, a stunt that might take 3 to 5 weeks to put on, and you're putting it on a Broadway stage.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, for me, it's so important. When possible, I always try to work with people I've known for a long time. And I mean, it's hard. It's a long process to vet a circus person because you really need to know that we put our lives in each other's hands, and you don't want to find out the wrong way that in fact they're not qualified to.
Sure.
Usually hand-to-hand partners, they always work with the same partner. But we know here if, let's say Alex is out and Rachel has to do the trick, that Nico also has to train with Rachel, which is a little more abnormal in circus terms, because usually in a circus, if the hand-to-hand duo is out, you get another hand-to-hand duo.
Sure.
But here we want to be very, modular. So it was a different type of training that was new for circus people for the most part. But it's what, keeps our show afloat. So yes.
Now, I do have to ask one question. Yeah. You're here, you have put circus on Broadway, but what does Broadway mean to you?
It means my roots in a lot of ways. I feel like my grandfather was a playwright also, but the first show I saw when I was 4 years old was Guys and Dolls, and that made me want to be a performer. And of course it went on to being something different in terms of being a trapeze artist and everything, but it was the very first thing that made me love the stage. So I feel like it's like going back to the very, very source of my passion.